Hi everyone, Woods of Odin here. I would like to talk to you about pop culture magic, but from the perspective of a rather unusual KOite. If you want to know about my personal beliefs and how I would label myself, go ahead and visit my channel. Um, but I wanted to address the topic from a different standpoint than Mel and Dante did. When it comes to the practice of magic and fiction, KOites have quite a different view. Basically, it can be described as more utilitarian, and it can be described as coming from the inside out rather than from the outside in. When I say utilitarian, I mean that if for whatever reason somebody is attached to a fictional cosmology, a fictional mythology, etc., and for whatever reason it will work for them in their magic, the attitude is, okay, go for it. The attitude is not, therefore, it must be true for everybody else, and it must be legitimate for everybody else. Now then, when I say it comes from the inside out rather than the outside in, the attitude is not, well, if it's from Dungeons and Dragons or Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or The Craft, etc., it must be true. But rather, if somebody wants to pirate a paradigm that comes from fiction, the idea is to really internalize the paradigm and literally alter your own mind such that you believe it. And then, once you do that, use it. And when the paradigm is no longer useful, whether or not somebody else made it up or it's from eons past or whatever, once you're done using it, when it is no longer useful, then set it aside, give it up, and reorient your mind such that you believe something else. So the idea is not, is it fiction or is it reality? The idea is, make it your reality so long as it is useful to you. And this gets into other areas such as thought forms and paradigmal piracy versus cultural appropriation. And I think those are topics for different videos. However, since I do have some time, I do want to address those ideas. There is a belief among many magical practitioners, not just KOites, that even if something begins in fiction, once people focus on it for a very long time and direct a lot of passion and energy and intent toward a particular thing that someone has created, then in the astral realm there actually is an entity out there, or entities. For example, The Amazing Spider-Man. People have been reading Spider-Man comics for decades, and of course there's a cartoon, and there's a huge fan base, and generations of new fans come down the pipe, and there's movies and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of people who not only focus attention, but focus a lot of passionate energy upon the character, the Amazing Spider-Man. So there are people who believe that out in the astral somewhere there is a real conscious entity that is Spider-Man. It's a little bizarre, I will admit, but there are people who believe that. And this would fall in line with pagans who use H.P. Lovecraft's mythos or J.R.R. Tolkien's mythos. I've seen it both. Now, as to paradigmal piracy versus cultural appropriation, the difference is when people appropriate things from different cultures, they don't bother to take into account the context of cultures. They don't bother to really learn. They just take things and use them. And paradigmal piracy involves not only educating yourself about the culture and spending time really getting to know what you're going to pirate, but it involves actually changing your own mind such that you believe whatever you're trying to pirate. It's not a process of just appropriating any old shit that you might be able to use, but it's a process of choosing a paradigm, really learning about it, and immersing yourself in it and making yourself believe it. So again, it's inside out rather than outside in, and the only difference is that between most traditional pagans and Caoites and other people that are on the fringe are perfectly willing to do that with fictional paradigms as well. I will leave you with a figure of speech. Figure of speech? I don't know if figure of speech is the word. Fuck. I'll leave you with a saying that's very common among Caoites. Nothing is real. All things are possible. And from there, you can understand how and why some people do practice with some kind of mythical system or cosmology, or even just a storyline that comes from something completely fictitious. Okay, and now I'm going to sit here and wait so YouTube doesn't cut me off. And of course, I'm very happy for someone to disagree with me. Say, well, this doesn't make any sense, or, you know, people who believe that the gods are external, objective beings might say, well, you're dishonoring the gods by just deciding to pull in fiction to your practice or something like that. But of course, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So, there you go. Now I'm gonna wait. Do 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 do.